Most organists are going to have a church job that takes them week in and week out for years. However, there's a certain type of organist, a special kind, and requires special skills. That's the substitute organist. After all, everybody needs a break now and then, both organists and clergy. So you're going to probably have a lot of business as a substitute. There's not that many substitutes around. There are a lot of questions you need to ask. That's the main thing. Every church is a little different. While there are many similarities, you need to get in touch with the clergy as well as the regular musician. Ask a lot of questions. It's important that you coordinate with them, and they're going to be your main cue person for any worship service. Does the congregation sing hymns? Do they sing all verses or stanzas of the hymns? How do they like to have the hymn introduced? Is it all the way through or just one phrase of the hymn? Is there a choir director? What does the choir sing? Do they sing responses? Do they sing hymns? We presume that. Are they going to sing an anthem? Any special music? Does the substitute need to be present at the rehearsal? Is the organist responsible for music leadership in the service, or is the leadership shared in some way with other instrumentalists? This is important if you're going to be collaborating with, say, a blended worship service and a praise band. Who's really in charge? Is the organist expected to provide a prelude or an offertory or a postlude? If so, how long? A lot of times offertories can be quite short if it's a smaller congregation, and they don't need a 5 or 6 minute piece. If the worship involves communion, is any portion of that sacrament involving accompanied singing that the organist has to accompany? So all of the service music needs to be spelled out, every response, and it can be complicated if there's communion. How many people are expected to attend the service? Now, that amount may vary depending on the size of the congregation and other conditions, but it does affect the dynamic level at which you might want to play the organ. If it's a really full congregation, you'll need to play with full registration to support them. If not, you don't want to blast over their singing and drown them out either. There are other questions that could be addressed to the organist that you are subbing for. For example, when can I have access to the building to practice? What days, what hours? Are there any special procedures for getting into the organ area? Where are the light switches? How do you turn the organ on and off? These are various things that you need to know in advance. It can save you a lot of frustration and even some panic when you get on site. Then to the attending clergy, your questions would be a bit different. How am I to receive my cues for starting responses and hymns and for moving to the next part of the service? Do I get those from clergy, or will it be in response to the conclusions of readings by several people? Email is a fabulous tool for substitute organists. It allows you to confirm arrangements easily, and it's a written record of everything, but you can also attach music scores, scans, and instead of having to go to the church, you can get them by email. A good substitute must not be shy when it comes to asking about compensation. You should know right away when you're called, how will I be paid and when? And how often? If you're subbing for an organist for 4 weeks or more, it could be that the church decides to pay you once a month instead of every service. And how will I receive my check? Will it be in the mail, or will I be given that at the beginning or the end of the service? I prefer that checks be mailed and not given at the time of the service. I think it's a little more discreet. For me, that's my own preference. You may prefer otherwise. Either way, make these arrangements in advance and at the time that you're hired. Once you arrive on site to practice, you'll need to interface with the room. It's going to be different everywhere you go. Every organ's different. Every room is different. You'll need to gauge how you're going to adjust your touch at the keyboard and the pedal board. How legato do you need to play? Generally, if it's bone dry, you need to play more legato. If it's very reverberant, you need to loosen up your touch in general. So that's a musical aspect that needs to be checked and verified, and you can only really do that when you are on site. If the organ has a combination action, you may find that the regular organist has his or her pistons already programmed. If the combination action only has one level of memory, if you adjust any of those, you are actually overwriting the memory and the pistons that the resident has set. So my advice is that if there's only one level of memory and you're going to overwrite those pistons, write down all of the registration that exists on the organ when you get there. Do that first and label it regular organist's pistons. And that way, even if you change all of them, when you get through, you can reset those pistons. That's just good console etiquette. The last thing anybody needs is for a substitute to come in and erase or modify all of the pistons. And it's quite a shock, as you know, if you're expecting something of one dynamic level and it's something vastly different. Now, if the organ has a multiple level combination action, you should ask that organist, please, if you can have 1 or 2 or 3 levels, however many you feel you're going to need to accomplish your registrations and to play all of the different elements in the service. Some combination actions have 200 or more levels of memory, so it should be no issue, while others may be more limited. Again, ask the resident organist and be courteous. Just remember, being a substitute requires that you be called again and again. Otherwise, you'll only substitute at every church once.